20 years ago, I started writing the first edition of my Illustrator handbook. This is edition number 9. In between the first and this edition, I wrote numerous tutorials, recorded them, and wrote in forums, and probably you've done the same. But none of us has read as many tutorials as Google. Maybe people started thinking, what if it could talk? And that's what they did. They trained it. And now we've got Google Gemini, an artificial intelligence that can watch you live working in Illustrator and assist you in performing specific tasks. So you ask it something and then it tells you how to do it. And this is what I've done here. I've asked it to assist me design a stamp in Adobe Illustrator with that perforated border. The way this is happening is you have a session of 10 minutes, and in this 10 minutes, it tells you what to do. It's still new, so it crashed a couple of times. It needed a couple of sessions, and I've also cut those videos so that the pauses are not too long. I'm going to interrupt it at times to comment it, and in the end, I'm also going to tell you my conclusions of this experiment. I would be interested in yours. Hello.
Hello to you too. How can I help you today?
I'd like to draw a postal stamp in Adobe Illustrator, and maybe you can help me with that. So what I don't know to do is how to create that frame, you know, that with that border around the postal stamp. I can show you Adobe Illustrator, and then maybe you can assist me.
Okay, I can help you with that. To create a frame around your postal stamp, you can use the rectangle tool to draw a rectangle around your design. Would you like me to elaborate on the steps?
Yes, I've got the rectangle. But now I need the rest of it.
Okay, now you want to create the rest of the postal stamp design.
Yes.
Are you planning on... Got it. So to add the characteristic serrated edge of a postal stamp, you could use the Effect menu, then Distort and Transform, then Zigzag. Would you like me to walk you through the settings?
Yes, I'm going to Effect, and then let's have Zigzag, like this. That's it. So what do I need to set up in here? Because that doesn't look like a stamp.
Okay, I see. You've applied the zigzag effect, but it doesn't look quite right yet. Okay, let's adjust the settings for the zigzag effect. Could you try changing the waves per segment to a higher number, maybe 10, and see if that creates the desired look?
So let's see. I've got 11. So it's like this, and this is 10. That's how 10 looks. And no, it's not really a stamp. Anything else I can change to get there?
All right, I see what you mean. The zigzag effect creates pointed edges, while postal stamps usually have a more rounded, scalloped look. Yeah, they are rounded. Okay, so instead of the zigzag effect, let's try using the roughen effect, which will give you those rounded edges you are looking for.
I'm going to cancel this one, and then let's go to Effect and Roughen. So in these tries, we see kind of a brute force attack, and it doesn't look like it has understood the nature of a stamp. We are going to get better first steps later on, where you get the feeling that it knows what it's doing.
Okay, I see. You've applied the roughen effect to the rectangle. How does that look now? Is it closer to what you are looking for?
Not really.
Okay, I see. The roughen effect still doesn't quite get those classic stamp edges. How about this? Instead of an effect, let's try a dashed stroke with rounded caps. Would you like to try this instead?
Yes, of course. I'm going to cancel this one. So what would I need to do?
Okay, so to create the dashed stroke, first, make sure your rectangle is selected. Then, in the stroke panel, you would select a dashed line and set the dashes and gaps to a size that looks like perforations for the stamp.
These directions lack precision because actually the dash value, there's nothing to be discussed about it. It has to be 0.
Finally, make sure the caps are rounded. Do you know how to access the stroke panel in Adobe Illustrator?
Yes, let's have that. There's the stroke panel. Okay, and let's have a stroke like this, and let's turn on the dashes like this, and then I'm going to set this to rounded, and then let's make points. I'm going to reduce this and add more here. That's not quite right, so let's input something here, and then this needs to be 0, I think, like this. Okay, let's take a look at that. So it's like this. It doesn't look right in the corners. Do you see that? So these are off. It has found the correct tutorial. We were getting somewhere. We were actually halfway there, but unfortunately, it crashed. So I wanted it to fix it, but I had to start a new session.
Hello to you too. How can I help you today?
I've started to design a stamp in Illustrator, but didn't finish it. So maybe you can help me finish it.
Okay, I understand. You started designing a stamp in Illustrator but didn't finish, and you'd like my help to complete it.
Yes.
I can help you with that.
I'm going to show you where I am. So this is where I am.
Okay, I can help you with Adobe Illustrator. What specifically would you like help with?
I'd like to draw a stamp, a postal stamp.
Okay, you'd like to draw a postal stamp in Adobe Illustrator. Do you have any ideas about the specific design you want or any elements that you want to incorporate?
It should be a round stamp. Oh, no, let's make it a rectangle.
Okay, is there a specific aspect ratio or size you'd like for the rectangle?
No, just a rectangle. I'm going to switch to Adobe Illustrator. Can you see that?
Okay. Yes, I see a rectangular shape in Adobe Illustrator. Is that the starting point for your postal stamp?
No, that is not the starting point. So I'm going to draw the rectangle. I'm just going to draw it like this. And this should now have that typical postal stamp edge. How would I go about that?
Okay, I see the blue rectangle you've drawn. You're aiming for the typical postal stamp edge look, right?
Yes.
You can achieve this in... Yes. Now you want to make the stamp edge. Do you want help adding the perforations to the edge, or do you have an idea of what you want to do?
No, I'd like the perforations. That's what I need help with.
Okay, I understand. You need help with adding the perforations to the edge of the rectangle. There are multiple ways to do this in Illustrator, and I can help you with a few methods. Would you like me to describe the methods, or would you prefer that I guide you through a specific method, and if so, which one?
No, please help me with the methods.
Okay, let's explore some methods for creating perforations. One straightforward way is to use the dashed line option in the stroke settings. Would you like me to walk you through using that method first?
Yes, please.
Okay, to use the dash line method, first make sure your rectangle is selected. Then, go to the stroke panel, which is typically on the right side of the screen. Can you see that panel and the stroke settings?
Yes, I have it.
Great. Now in the stroke panel, you'll see a checkbox that says dashed line, which is labeled gestrige linie in your version. Check that box. Do you see that?
Yes, there it is. This part is really interesting. So I'm using the German version of Illustrator, and Gemini tells me exactly where in that panel to enter the numbers, and it tells me what it can see in my screen in that actual place. So the German pronunciation is not very good, but it works.
Good. Now you will see the line is a dashed line, but to achieve the perforation look, we need to make adjustments to the dash and gap settings, which are labeled as stretch and look. I'll explain the basic settings first.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so stretch controls the length of each dash, and look, it controls the space between each dash. To make it look like perforations, you'll want to use short dashes and short spaces. Let's start by entering 2 pt for stretch. Are you able to do that?
Yes, there it is.
Okay, and now for the lux setting, let's also enter 2 point. What does the line look like now?
Like this.
Excellent. You now have the basic perforation effect for your stamp edge. Would you like to adjust the dash and gap sizes further? Or are you satisfied with this look for now?
No, I don't think it looks like a correct perforation. So it kind of looks odd. I'm going to increase the stroke so you see this is what it looks like, but it should be some, they are round punching into that blue. So there should be semicircles here. So how would I do that?
Okay, I understand that the current dash line doesn't quite capture the effect you're aiming for. To create the semicircular perforations, we'll need to use a different method. Would you like me to describe how to use the brush tool to create custom perforations with semicircles?
Yes, please. In the previous tries that I had, Gemini actually got closer to the correct result because it told me to use rounded caps for the dashes. But in here, in this new session, it doesn't remember that part, obviously, and it now switches to another different method using a brush. Unfortunately, we cannot finish that because at this point, it crashes again.
Okay, to use the brush tool, you'll first need to create a semicircle shape that we can then use as a brush. Let's start with that. First, select the ellipse. Okay, now can you select the ellipse tool, which is often located under the rectangle tool in the toolbox on the left side of the screen?
Yes, I have that.
Hello, how can I help you today?
I think we were cut off when you wanted to explain to me how to use the brush tool in Adobe Illustrator to create a postal stamp perforation. And I like to do that. Nice try. But artificial intelligence just doesn't work like that. It doesn't remember what it just told you. So you have to start from scratch and you have to hope that it gives you the same method again. But as you will see soon, it doesn't.
It sounds like you would like to know how to use the brush tool in Adobe Illustrator to create a postal stamp perforation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I can help you with that. First, open Adobe Illustrator and create a new document. Do you need me to continue with the next step?
Yes, please.
Okay, now that you have a new document open, select the brush tool from the toolbar on the left side of your screen. Are you able to locate the brush tool?
Yes.
Great! Now, in order to create the perforation effect, we will need to adjust the brush settings. To do that, double-click on the brush tool icon. Do you see the brush settings window?
Yes, there is the brush settings window.
Okay, in that settings window, you can adjust the accuracy slider to your preference. For the best perforation effect, you should set the accuracy to the lowest setting, exact. After that, press OK. Are you able to adjust? All right, now click OK to confirm the changes to your brush settings. Now, draw a line in your document with the brush tool. Does the line look perforated?
No, that is just a straight line.
You're right, that's a regular line. Let's fix that. Go back to the brush settings by double-clicking the brush tool icon again, and this time, in addition to setting the accuracy to its lowest value, make sure the Keep Selected box is unchecked so there is no check mark on it, then press OK. Now draw a line. Does that look more like a perforation?
Nope.
Okay, it seems that the brush settings need some more adjusting. Let's go back to the brush settings one more time by double-clicking on the brush tool. This time, in addition to having the accuracy slider all the way to the left and the Keep Selected box unchecked, we should make sure that the Fill New Brush Strokes box is also unchecked. Then press OK. Does it work now?
No.
Okay, let's try something different. Instead of adjusting the brush settings, let's use a special dashed stroke. First, select the lines you have drawn so far by clicking on them while holding the Shift key. Once you've selected the lines, go to the stroke panel, which should be on the right side of the window, and select Dashed Line. Then, you can change the size of the dashes and gaps to create your desired perforation. How does it look now?
It doesn't look very dashed, so let's see if I can change that.
Okay, I understand. You need to make the dashes and gaps more defined. In the dash line settings, increase the dash value and the gap value so that the line looks more like a perforation with clear spaces between the dashes. Try different values until you achieve the desired look. Are you able to get that look now?
No, it's just not there. So it doesn't look like that. So I've got a gap setting of 30 and a dash of 2, but that is still just a straight line. Now at this point, Gemini and I face a problem with that stroke that still has a brush applied. And because that is the case, we cannot get dashes on that stroke. Gemini does not know that, does not notice that, how to debug this situation. So again, it does a lot of brute force attacks, but it will not find a solution to that.
Okay, it looks like the issue is still with the gap and dash settings. Even though the lines are now technically dashed, they aren't forming the perforation effect that you want. Let's try this. Click on Strick and then change the value to 0 to remove any solid dashes. Then click on Luck and change it to a value that looks right for the size of the dashes, say 10. Now the gaps should create a more defined perforation effect. Does that work?
No, there are still just lines.
Okay, it appears there is still an issue with the stroke settings. Please, select the 3 lines again by holding the Shift key as you click them. Then, go to the stroke panel and change the strict setting, that is currently 0, to a value higher than 0 and less than 10. Then click Luck and change that value to be equal or slightly larger than the strict value. This should provide a good representation of the perforation. Please, let me know if that helps.
Okay, I'm changing it to 5 and 5, but still, they are just lines.
Okay, it looks like the dashes are too small to be visible. In the stroke panel, click on Profile and select the Basic option. Then change the strict to 1 and Luck to 5, and let me know if that helped.
So this is just basic. And when we change this to 1 and the other one to 5, it still doesn't work.
Okay, it seems that the profile setting is affecting how the dashes are displayed. Please select the lines and in the Profile drop-down, click on the first option, the one that reads Uniform.
Yeah,
Then,
it's this one. So that is set.
Okay, now that we've set the profile to basic, set the strict value to something like 1 and the luck value to something like 5. Now, does it look like the perforations you want?
No, not at all. There are still just lines.
Okay, I see what is happening. We've been adjusting the dashes within the stroke settings, but to make a perforation, we need to create gaps in the stroke itself. Select the lines you have drawn, then click the stroke option on the top bar and click the dashed line checkbox. There, set the dash value to 0 and the gap value to a desired number to simulate the dashes. Do they look like perforations now?
So I'm going to this one and set it to 0. And this is 5. But still they do not change. So that was my short experience with Google Gemini. This was a rather simple example, one that has pretty straightforward tutorials that can be easily found and then read out to the viewer to assist them doing it and having that finished in a couple of steps. But still we can see with this example where the whole approach of using artificial intelligence has its limits. We have those short sessions, and when the session is ended, then you start new, and artificial intelligence then creates something new. It doesn't pick up what you already have or what it has already told you. It seems you are talking to different personalities in the different sessions, as you have seen with those different approaches. Also, we can see that it sometimes doesn't get to the core of the problem. So it doesn't analyze the problem, but looks at it from the surface and just sees we've got a rough edge, and then we need to create a rough edge in Illustrator with those effects, because it doesn't understand the concept of perforation. But then also we see when we are running into issues that are caused by something that has happened, as with that brush that was applied when we wanted to create the dashes, then it cannot really solve this. There are also things that were impressive. I didn't tell it that I use the German version, but it was able to switch to that and point me to certain elements inside the interface and also read that out to me. I found that pretty impressive. I'm also interested into what you think. So, do you think I'll be out of work soon? Please write me in the comments. And in case you're interested, now we can still take a look at how to get the stamp. Let's start with the rectangle. And let's make that the color blue. And then we already have the stroke applied. But we need the appearance panel, like this. And then we have the stroke and need to give that a larger stroke weight. And then also we need to, of course, change it. So let's go into the stroke panel from the appearance panel. And then I can set the cap to rounded. Turn on the dashed line. And the dash needs to be 0 for those dashes to be just round. And the gap needs to be larger than the weight. So let's set that to 15, like this. And also these corners need to be like this. So align dashes to corners. That's important because then we've got the nice edges. So now those are black points. Of course, we could set them to white. Let's just do that. Set them to white, and then we get the stroke, the typical perforation. But we could not put that on a different color, so we want to punch that. Let's put a different colored one here, like this, and you see we've got the points. So in order to have them really punch, of course we could expand the stroke and then use the Pathfinder panel, but that's not necessary because we can use the appearance panel. So we need to go in here and set the opacity of that stroke to 0. Now it's gone, of course. But now in order to punch that, we go into the opacity setting here, which is the opacity of the complete object, and turn on the knockout group. And you see, now we have the typical perforated border of the stamp. And of course we could put that on the other stamp as well. So that's how we design that in Adobe Illustrator.